Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. This is my second in-person TS McPherson Legacy Society Luncheon, and I'm really happy that I'm actually starting to recognize a lot of familiar faces here today. So just to begin, I want to thank everybody for coming. And for those of you that don't know, which is probably most of you, my name is Chris Horbaczewski. I'm the Vice President, External Relations here at UVic, and I'm really happy to be your MC and help move our program along. But as we come together to recognize the importance of your support of the university, and most importantly, of the students at the university, I just want to begin by acknowledging and respecting the Lekwungen, the Songhees, and the Esquimalt peoples on whose traditional territory the university stands, and the Lekwungen and Wasanich peoples whose historical relationships with the land continue to this day. And it's now my great honor to introduce Kathy Horn of the Sayout Nation and Doug LaFortune, also of the Sayout Nation, as well as UVic's Elders' Voices, to provide us with a welcome to this beautiful territory.
Holy smokes. This isn't the biggest group we've been in front of, but thank you for having us. I think the biggest group we're in front of is we just got nominated to be King and Queen of the Elders Gathering before we started doing any of this stuff, so we're pretty green. And they invited us to go to Vancouver to a health conference, and nobody told us anything to do or what we're going to say. And we walk out in the stage, and there's 5,000 people there. And they said, just go talk to them and tell them to come to Saanich. So we walk out there, and I said, holy smoke, I've never seen that many people in my life. So, so we're getting kind of used to this now, and we enjoy it. We enjoy our jobs. It's a wonderful thing. It's, for us to be here is quite a big deal because education, I was in foster care and she was in residential school, and education was the biggest thing on our list because we got married quite young. She was 17 and I was 19, and our main thing was raising our children and just getting by, and we did it for a long time. I became a carver, so it was like 50 some odd years. But to end up back here is in University of Victoria, it's amazing. It's, we feel so blessed, you know what I mean, to be here and be doing these welcomes, Because when I was in foster care, it was never talked about being Native, it was just, I was there and it was never mentioned that I was Native, that I was Coast Salish or anything like that. So to be here speaking in front of you is a very special thing. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the chance to do it and represent my people in such a sacred place. This was a very special place to our people. I think it was one of the main things they gathered here was camas. And I tried some camas. Yuck, it's stuff. I wasn't a very good Indian. But anyhow, when people came to our territory, and they usually came by canoe, and they'd stand up in the canoe, announce they were here, and they come with their hands open, and it would mean they have no weapons. They come in peace. So if they came in peace, our people would welcome them in and come in and share food with them and place to sleep sometimes. And they only had one thing they asked is, we all lived in long houses back then, they call them big houses now, but back in the day they were our homes, and there was lots of them down in the Cordova Bay there. It's a big village there. And one thing we'd ask is when they come into the house, just leave all their problems outside. Don't bring them inside, and you're welcome to to stay and share food and lodgings as long as you wanted. So, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome everybody. As the young fellow over there said, welcome to Lequaman, Songhees, Esquimalt, and my people, Saanich people. Welcome to our territory. We welcome you. I think my girlfriend's going to say something now.
Oh, thank you everyone for inviting us here. Like Doug says, we're really honored to be here and represent our communities here in all of our territories here on the island. I myself am of New Channel heritage, but we've been married for almost 52 years now, so we honor both our New Channel heritage and our Coast Salish. So by saying that, I raise my hands to Creator today. I raise my hands to Creator, thanking Him for bringing everyone here safely. Put your shield of protection over each and every one of you as you're here and as you travel through your day, and enjoy a wonderful meal prepared with love and support to nourish our minds, our bodies, and our spirits. And as you go through a day, open our minds, open our hearts, and open the doors to each and every one of us to have a clear mind. So, haijka, kleko, kleko. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doug and Kathy, for your warm welcome, for your blessing, and of course for being here today to start our program in a good way. So unfortunately, due to an unexpected family matter, Kwasiamat, Dr. Robina Thomas, the university's Vice President Indigenous, first Vice President Indigenous, is not able to be here with us today. But don't worry, because here to speak on her behalf, is Dorothea Harris and Juliana Nielsen. Dorothea's family is from Sinamo First Nation, and she works in the Office of the Vice President Indigenous as the Director of Indigenous University Initiatives, overseeing the creation and implementation of the university's new Indigenous plan. So if we're looking for an expert on the Indigenous plan who can share all the ins and outs of it, Dorothea is our person without a doubt. Juliana is a project manager in the Office of the Vice President Indigenous. She works closely with Dorothea, and her work with the office team also extends to supporting and tracking the implementation of our new Indigenous plan, as well as providing research support for Indigenous initiatives across campus. Thank you, Dorothea and Juliana, for stepping in quite unexpectedly and at the last minute for joining us today to share about the creation of the Indigenous plan, which is intended to focus our actions as a university community in upholding the self-determining rights of Indigenous peoples. So please.
Squale, nice to see everybody. It is under really unfortunate circumstances. Actually, Robina's had a loss in her family, and so I was asked to step in. But I'm happy to be here. I would be happy to present on the Indigenous plan at any time. So. Nice to see you all. My family's from Snuneymuxw First Nation. I come from the Good family. My parents are Sandra and William Good. Late grandmother Hazel Good. My parents are also artists, so like Doug, my dad's a carver. So I grew up around art and culture and community. I'm wearing some of my family's art today, so I just want to share that with you. I've been at UVic since 2018 in different positions, but a lot of my role has been both overseeing the previous Indigenous plan and then heading up the process of revitalizing the new Indigenous plan. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, thank you for the invitation to be here. Thank you, Doug and Kathy, for your beautiful words of welcome. My name is Juliana Nielsen. I grew up as a guest on Mowacha't-Mushlet territory and came to UVic in 2015 as a student in history and political science. Today I am a project manager with the OVPI and graduate student in political science. I have Cree, Métis, and Ojibwe ancestry on my mother's side and Danish and English settler ancestry on my father's side. Back to you.
Thank you. Okay. So first I just wanted to bring your attention to the beauty of the new plan, the name of the plan. It's, I'm going to not completely say it properly in the language, but it's Quinanistal. So we've got the words of the new plan in both Lekwungen is the first line, so that's representing the language of the local nations of Songhees and Esquimalt. And then the second line is the Sinchothan language, which is the Wasanich peoples. So we've had the name gifted to us from Jasinkton, John Elliott, who is from Sinchothan-speaking peoples, and then translated by Elmer George into Lekwungen, so Sinipton. So we're really thankful, and we did honor him in ceremony for providing this name for us. And so what it means is to help to move each other forward. And so that was gifted to us to think about how we're going to do this work collectively at UVic. So that was really precious and meaningful for us. And also the blanket is really critical, that all of the work is framed with this blanket framework. It's a Coast Salish blanket that was gifted to us by Myrna Crosley, who's from Songhees. And Coast Salish weaving, for those of you who don't know, is almost a dead art as a result of the mechanization of blanket making that happened with settler colonialism, and then people took up knitting. And that's how the Cowichan sweaters came to be. But the tradition originally was Coast Salish weaving. So bringing that tradition back is really significant. And it's significant to really grounding this plan in the local teachings and the local territories and the local practices.
Going east to help to move each other forward.
There you get to hear it spoken. So that's Jasinkton John Elliott speaking as for us. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a brief overview. The previous Indigenous plan was 2017 to 2022. It responded to the TRC calls to action. So a lot of the goals in the previous plan were in response to that. It was founded in 4 Coast Salish teachings, and again, I can't speak it in the language very well, so I'm just going to speak the English. Remember our ancestors and birthright, work together, bring in your good feelings, and be prepared for the work to come. And those are 4 of the local teachings that's been gifted to us from the local communities. Over the 5 years, 83% of the actions in the previous Indigenous plan were either completed or significant progress. And actually, Juliana just completed a 5-year report, and 100% of the actions were either completed or significant progress was made. So we have been successful with these Indigenous plans to actually do the work at UVic, and it's not just a token piece of work that happens. The previous one was built on work that had already started. UVic has been a leader in some areas, like Indigenous social work, for example. We've had a lot of various areas, Indigenous governance, Indigenous studies. We've had a lot of good work that's happened over many years, but we're really building on the work that people did previously. And then the previous one involved consultation, but not as extensive as we undertook with this one. Our process, we involved an Indigenous plan steering circle, which were representatives from across the campus, students, faculty, staff, and different leaders. And then we engaged with Indigenous students, staff, faculty, elders, and communities, developed themes, wrote up a draft plan, and then brought it back to everybody several times. So this was actually vetted over a year and a half. So there were more than 800 responses. In the end, I think we probably had over 100 responses to all of our engagement, with more than 20 engagement sessions. And then we had a number of priorities that came forward, as you can see in this list. Do you want to speak about the highlights of the priorities?
Sure. Yeah. So the plan endeavors to reflect what we've heard from all of the consultation groups that you see on the slide. So we consulted with community members, leaders from local nations. We consulted with students, elders, staff, and faculty. And what we saw is that these engagement groups had very different concerns and interests and aspirations. The plan reflects what we've heard in terms of ensuring that staff are resourced, ensuring that students have opportunities to learn about Indigenous peoples, cultures, and histories of colonization. From elders shared with us some of their values and teachings with respect to ensuring that we take care of one another at the university. So we've taken time to make sure that we're integrating into the new Indigenous plan systems and supports to make sure that we are able to care for each other in a good way and do this work with a good heart and good mind.
And as you can see, the elders were also very concerned with health and wellness. If you look at these word clouds, that was their #1 priority. And the concern here is that a lot of our Indigenous students and staff and faculty suffer from everything from systemic racism to just burnout from the sheer amount of work that needs to be done. And a lot of our offices are understaffed for the amount of work that now we're being called to do, particularly as DRIPA becomes implemented, and all of our university-wide systems want to implement indigenization across the campus. And so our elders were very concerned with people's wellness, and so that is also really written into the plan. You want to talk about the current context? Okay.
This plan also reflects the current context of our work. We looked at different action plans, frameworks, and reports from national, international, and local contexts. Our committee integrated the calls to justice from the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls report, as well as the BC DRIPA action plan, into the priorities of the renewed Indigenous plan. In many ways, this document is our university's response to provincial, national, and international frameworks for reconciliation.
And I wanted Juliana to share that, because as a poli-sci student, she worked on a lot of that analysis to make sure that we were attending to all of these different plans across campus, and like she said, nationally as well. So we worked really hard on thinking about a guiding statement and what that means for us moving forward. One of the things Rabina often says, and had said in a lot of our meetings, is that she wants her grandchildren to come here one day and not have to leave their values as an Indigenous person behind to get an education. And this needs to be a safe place that whichever class that they take, they can be who they are and have their identity, and that any Indigenous student can do that. So we thought long and hard, and I think that's what you were talking about, being able to come now to a place where you can be yourself and be recognized for who you are and your identity. And so our guiding statement, the university community lives the laws and philosophies, ensuring that all ancestors, relatives, and future generations are recognized and celebrated, and that their teachings, languages, and ways of knowing and being are respected. We work to create a community of belonging, well-being, and accountability that honors and supports diverse Indigenous identities, experiences, and teachings. And this statement took us a long time to get to. We had to really work through getting to the place where we came with a strong guiding statement. So as I mentioned earlier, the blanket became the background for all of the work, essentially the tapestry, so to speak. And so we thought about the previous plan had the 4 teachings. The 4 teachings were imperative that we would not only keep them, but they actually became the core of the new plan. So they were in the last plan, they were talked about, but they weren't actually the background of the plan. So we thought about the weaving metaphor and how when you're weaving in Coast Salish weaving, you have the warp, you have the uprights, fibers, and then you weave through the other fibers to make your designs. And so the teachings are those uprights. Everything is woven through the teachings. When we took all of the data from all of the information we gathered, we said, where within the teachings do they fit? And that's how we created the new plan. And then we also wove through the different main categories, so people, learning and teaching, research and researching, and governance and operations. So for each teaching, we came up with a primary goal, and then under the goal came priorities. So for Remember Our Ancestors and Birthright, the goal is that all members of the university community understand and demonstrate how to live, learn, and work in right relationships with local lands, waters, and laws. So really thinking that anybody who comes to this university would start to understand what territory they're on, what the local protocols are, what languages are spoken here, and how to be in this territory.
After all the July and remember our ancestors, our birthright.
For Work Together, the goal is that all members of the university community respectfully contribute to a culture of collaboration and cooperation. So for this one, our priorities include expanding mentorship programs, eliminating barriers to higher education experiences by Indigenous peoples, ensuring we're creating a culture where we alleviate burdensome workloads through hiring and resourcing, and supporting Indigenous research projects. And one of the things, as you saw from the word clouds, is a lot of the, like I said, a lot of the Indigenous staff and faculty talked about having to do We often talk about Indigenous community having to walk in both worlds or two-eyed seeing. Sometimes that actually means double the workload. It means you have a job description and then people come to you for all things Indigenous. So really thinking about how we can resource and support Indigenous staff and faculty more as well, so that working together isn't a burden on Indigenous faculty and staff, but it's actually coming alongside each other and resourcing people appropriately.
Now we'll all work together.
So for bringing a good heart and a good mind, we will prioritize the health, well-being, and equitable treatment of all members of the university community in the policies, practices, systems, and structures of the university. So this includes developing dispute resolution procedures that respect Indigenous ways of knowing and being, creating more anti-racist opportunities for learning and professional development, recognizing Indigenous research and researchers, and ensuring accountability in classrooms and supporting our students.
Mactin H. Qualakwan, being a good heart and mind.
I just love listening to him. And the last one, be prepared for the work to come. The goal is funding, resources, and capacity are sufficient to deliver sustainable and responsive educational experiences, student services, programs, and supports. And this one is really critical because I think one of the things that UVic has been very good at is creating programs, but then sometimes when there's financial difficulties, we don't always sustain them. And so I think it's really important to think about a lot of our positions. Sometimes they're on a one-year term because we got some initial funding and then we don't continue, or some of the programs. And so it's really important for us to start to find the funding and the resources to make sure that when we start these programs, particularly if we're partnering with an Indigenous community, like offering a language revitalization program, for example, that we have the funding to continue. We don't just start for a couple years and then can't continue that program. So really thinking about being strategic about what we roll out and that we have the resources to roll those things out. And it also is about, I just heard this the other day, that it was actually yesterday in the language program in the Bachelor of Education. We have an amazing language program where it ladders from a diploma in language into a Bachelor of Education, but that some of the people who were offered seats in the program were not able to come because they couldn't find housing in Victoria. So this also goes to us thinking about how we can support people in other forms of resourcing. So if they need housing or childcare, that was another issue. So what kinds of other supports, and maybe that's not our job, but could we partner with other agencies? Are there other ways we can think about resourcing people to actually access these programs? And so that's another piece of this work too. So supporting housing projects, access to medical care, accommodation, childcare, creating pathways for Indigenous people entering the workforce, and PhD students to become faculty members is another huge issue. I know in some of our faculties, they desperately want to hire Indigenous PhD students, but we need to get them through the programs. Partnering with communities to develop relevant programs and support their research projects, and increase Indigenous senior leadership to guide the implementation. So again, like our office is very small, so again, needing more people to do this work. And redress barriers to university faced by Indigenous people. So these are all lofty goals. We're going to have several years to work on them, but these are our goals.
Sayal imokon anet sasjay, be prepared for the work to come.
And then all of this work is framed within the sacred cycle, and the sacred cycle is remembering the past, the present, and the future, and that we're always in a cycle of continuing to do this work and remembering our ancestors and birthright. And that goes for everybody too, and we've kind of written that into the Indigenous plan, that even if you're a settler, if you're from somewhere else, you have teachings, you have knowledge, you have things that you bring with you, and that we're going to learn to work together in the present, and we're going to learn to work with a good heart and a good mind, and that we're going to together prepare for the work to come, and that this is always a cycle, and we're going to continue to do this work. It's not just a number of tasks, that we're going to carry those teachings with us, each of us together as a community, and we're going to work together to make this happen. Okay, questions or comments? So Kathy was just sharing, just thanking us for the work, and we did work on this for 2 years actually, between all of the engagements, and we engaged a lot with the elders to make sure that the teachings were be attended to in a really, really good way, that we weren't tokenizing the teachings, and Rabina actually even had questions about putting the teachings in and not making sure that we don't tokenize them, that if we're going to use them, that we're serious about using them, that we mean it, that we're actually going to learn to live this way as a community, as a university community. And so that was a really important conversation, and we kept going back to the elders, like, is it appropriate to use these teachings? Are we doing this in the right way? We don't want to just slap some language on it and call it another strategic type plan, right? So I think we've done this work in a good way with a consultation, like I said, with Indigenous community, chief and councils, elders, staff and faculty, students. And we did hear a lot, and I think we've tried to attend to actually everything that we've heard, and we've been very supported by the university administration as well, to not take anything out or soften any language, that everything that was there was meant to be there. And the other thing that we did do, and I haven't really mentioned it much, but we also did a joint engagement process with the STRAT plan, so the UVic strategic plan. They came to me because we were a new Vice President Indigenous office, and they said, how should we engage with the Indigenous community for the strategic plan? And I said, well, we're going to be engaging with the Indigenous plan. Why don't we do this jointly? So all of the things that we heard, they also heard, and became a lot of those teachings and knowledge and language from Jacinta and from John Elliott also was incorporated into the strategic plan as well. So those two plans are actually very symbiotic, which is the first time that UVic has done something like that, had a joint engagement process. So that both plans work really well together and complement one another. And so I have to also raise my hands to our administration, to Kevin Hall and to his team and Rabina, for allowing us to do the really, really good work to make sure that we can work together, that both systems within this university are aligned. And I think that it's really what's going to make us unique moving forward. I don't want to compare ourselves with other universities, but just thinking about how we've done this together, the whole university structure has worked together, I think is really unique. So if people said, how is this different than other people's plans? Our strategic plan and our Indigenous plan are not too separate. They work together. So we're already doing the working together piece, and people are already coming forward from different faculties and saying, how can we implement this? What can we do? And people are really interested in taking up this work. So I'm really proud of that part too, of our community partners across campus. It's a really good question. Since we just had the launch, what's happened is now people are starting to approach us, asking for more information. So I do see a lot of work now coming out of this, both internally to train our internal people across campus, what this looks like for their departments or their faculties to support them to do that work. And then I also anticipate that we will be speaking on it. I know we did speak at the Truth and Reconciliation Conference in June. Rabina and I went, and we were just at the tail end of wrapping this up, and did share our initial findings and kind of our work. But yes, I'm imagining that we'll be sharing it with other universities, I'm sure. We recently were involved with the naming of the two new buildings as well, and that got Lekwungen names, and we've had people approach us from all across Canada about how to do naming in a really good way and with respect to the local nations. And so I anticipate we'll be receiving other requests. Yeah. So that's actually one of the goals is actually to have a first year course is one of the goals, is that all students who come to UVic. So right now, for example, we have an English writing requirement that all students have to take essentially a first year writing course to graduate. So what we'd like to see and what's written into the plan is that we would have training, that all students would take a first year type course that would help them to understand Indigenous history, some of the local nations, context, and however that would be built out. But what we're asking is for essentially a first year required course that all students would take, so they would leave with the competency. And it actually ladders well into what the BC government has just done with the K-12 system, that nobody can graduate without at least one Indigenous course in the K-12 system. So then laddering that into our post-secondary system makes sense, right? And so, but we have to develop that out and figure out where it lives, because right now we do have programs, like I mentioned, the Indigenous specialization in social work, where there are a number of required courses so that you leave with that competency, right? But there's other programs that don't require that, and so we need to figure out how to make that more universal. So I think that'll be worked out. And then we also are asking for training for all new Indigenous staff and faculty too, right? So we currently have Indigenous cultural acumen training that is rolled out, but it's people have to opt into it. It's not required necessarily. So we'd like to make that, not say mandatory, but we'd like to make that part of the onboarding process. Yeah. I think recently the last I saw was something around maybe 1450, 1500, somewhere around there. And then maybe another 200 to 300 of, so that would be undergrad, another 200 to 300 grad students as well. We're actually seeing quite a bit of an increase in grad students as we open, particularly PhD cohorts for, like I said, language revitalization, like specific areas, masters in areas that are really of interest to the community. We're starting to see those cohorts build in those areas too. And then the Indigenous law is a great addition as well. Yeah, so I think we're seeing, like, we're actually drawing people from across Canada because of some of our specialties. And then our goal, obviously, under our SEM plan was to kind of raise it to 10% of kind of the UVic population would be Indigenous students. So, but I think we're definitely edging towards that. And we also have like from the original Indigenous plan, I think there was less than 30 Indigenous faculty, and now we're over 70. So, I mean, we're seeing really strong increases as a result of these initiatives and these prioritizations. We're good? Okay.
Thank you very much, Dorothea and Juliana. Now I'd like to invite you to enjoy lunch. If you do have any questions or if you'd like a copy, they're just sitting right up here. So feel free to interact during lunch as well. Thank you. I'd also like to say a very special thank you to our Legacy Giving team, Christy and Greg, and I just saw Christy walk out the door there, thanking Doug and Kathy for joining us, who had to leave. But please join me in thanking Greg and Christy, who did a wonderful job of organizing this today. It's now my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Elizabeth Croft, the university's Vice President, Academic and Provost. Dr. Elizabeth Croft began her 5-year term as VP Academic and Provost at UVic on July 1, 2022. Dr. Croft is a mechanical engineer, which we don't hold against her in any way. And she's recognized internationally as an expert in the field of human-robot interaction. And she assures me that she is not trying to build a private robot army. And if you know anything about a university and you know anything about the role of a provost at a university, you realize how tempting having a robot army must be for you. Before joining UVic, Dr. Croft was the Dean of Engineering at Monash University in Melbourne, Australia. Prior to that, she was a tenured full professor in the Department of Mechanical Engineering at the University of British Columbia. Within the Faculty of Applied Sciences, Elizabeth served in many, many roles, including as Senior Associate Dean Education and Professional Development, and as Associate Head of the Department of Mechanical Engineering. So please join me in welcoming Elizabeth.
Thanks very much, Chris, for that warm introduction, and thank you all for being here today. It's wonderful to see so many supporters of the university, and I would like to also, although they have left, to thank Doug and Kathy for getting us started in such a good way. So I have an opportunity here to share a little bit about what's going on at the university, where we are with our strategic plan. I thought it was wonderful, and I want to say thank you again to Dorothea and her team for presenting on the Indigenous plan, which is really central to a lot of what we're doing. And I'm hoping this is going to work. There we go. There we are. Okay. So Indigenous scholarship and our commitment to truth and respect and reconciliation really is one of the defining features of UVic, and one that we are very proud to uphold and advance. And the welcome that we had this before lunch reminded us to reflect and learn from the past, be mindful and intentional in our present, and work together for a better and more compassionate future. So I have been asked today, as I said, to speak to you about UVic's strategic direction and the vision for our future. And I know that you will be hearing much more about our commitment to Atel Nuel, respecting the rights of one another and being in right relationship with all things. I think this is just, it speaks to my heart, and I hope it will speak to you. As Chris has noted, my role is as Vice President Academic Provost, which means that my role is to lead the university's academic mission. And I do work very closely with my academic colleagues, many of whom, including our deans, are joining us here today. So thank you, deans, for coming out. It's really good to see you here. And we ensure that our students receive a high-quality education and a fulfilling student experience that is enriched by the research and the academic scholarship that we do within the faculties. It is our role as leaders and educators to prepare students for that next chapter after graduation, whatever that may be, further learning or working in a company or in society. We really believe that our job is to lift up and empower students. And I truly believe in the empowering and transformational power of education on an individual basis as well as on a community and global basis. What we do here at UVic matters. We teach each other, and what we teach each other and what we teach the next generation matters. Our research and its impact on people, place, and the planet matter. And none of it would be possible without the support of others like you, and also believing in the transformative power of education. Education lifts, research empowers, and this knowledge transforms our society. And in an age that we have right now of social media, of misinformation, a time when things can travel so rapidly, it is absolutely critical that we are training the future critical thinkers, that we are training people to ask and answer important questions, to think deeply. And that is what a university provides. This is a time when we need people to solve some pretty critical and difficult and wicked problems. And that is what we do here at UVic. So thank you so much for your support in taking our students forward in this way. We are joined here, by the way, by some superstar students who have received an award that has been established by a legacy gift. And I'm so pleased that you have chosen UVic. And I will say to our students, you know, I may be biased, but I am going to tell you that you have absolutely picked the right university to be at. So well done, you. I will say that I am not myself from Vancouver Island. I was actually born and raised in Vancouver on the traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. But I think it's absolutely important that we make sure that our youth are engaged in all sorts of discovery. At an early age, I had an affinity for science and engineering. I was the kid that was endlessly building dams in my lane. You know, I must have really annoyed the neighbors. And I was endlessly building, you know, Rube Goldberg machines with all of the Lego and Meccano that I had stolen from my brother and hoarded in my room. So, you know, I think we all are born with a natural curiosity and an affinity for lifelong learning. And you know, this is what we want to inspire in our youth now and in future generations. And this is what drew me to the university, and what keeps me coming back and being so delighted to be part of a university community is that opportunity for exciting discovery, that opportunity to ask hard questions, to hold 3 or 4 ideas in my mind at the same time and think through them, you know, to be able to see all sides of the question and to engage with colleagues. It's such a great privilege. I have had an absolute great privilege, the benefit of a Canadian university education. I've worked and studied at UBC. I did master's degree at Waterloo. I studied at Toronto, where I earned my PhD in engineering, working in human-robot interaction. And you know, these are real privileges, and I'm grateful for the support that I had as a student, benefiting from scholarships. I then returned to UBC for 23 years as a teacher, as a researcher, as an administrative leader. I served as an NSERC chair, and then I actually headed down to Australia. And I suspect it was a bit of an adventure for me, and I think it was absolutely an adventure for my husband and my youngest daughter, who was kidnapped by her mother and taken to Australia. And why did I go to Australia? It was a fantastic opportunity. I got to be Dean of the Faculty of Engineering at Monash University in Melbourne. It's a big university, and what it did actually make me appreciate is although the Australians do some things well, I think Canada does some pretty wonderful things around education, about creating community and home for students. I think particularly that is one of the things that I've come to recognize that I missed when I was there, is that that ability to create a real community and support for students. And I think that the Australians could learn a little bit more about that from us. So it was a great experience. And I had lots of opportunity doing work in robotics and working in virtual reality as well. But I'll tell you what I missed. I missed the forest. I missed the ocean and the trees and the mountains and all the curiosity and creativity and exploration that they inspire. I'll have to say that I spent this summer, I went up to Toba Inlet and I went kayaking up that inlet. And you know, it's just so fantastic to realize what a wonderful gift we have of the environment around us. So I miss the ocean and the trees, and I'm grateful that I live in such a spectacular place, and I give my thanks to the Coast Salish people who have cared for this land since time immemorial. And I couldn't imagine a better place to learn, to work, to grow, and to play. So I came from Australia back here to UVic, and it's been just about a year. And one of the great things I think about the education that we are offering here is that it takes us down new roads and to new places that we might not explore, literally and figuratively. And I know that you all have your own journey, and I am grateful that you have been part of our journey as a community. And so that is why I know you, as a member of the McPherson Society, have chosen the right university too. And I'll tell you some reasons why it's such a fantastic university if you don't know. Recently, the Times Higher Education, which is a ranking agency and actually a pretty important one for universities, ranked UVic 3rd in the world for climate action. That is impressive for a university of our size. We are in the top 10 for impact as measured by the Sustainable Development Goals. Again, speaks to my heart about what you can do and the power of the university. They also ranked us #1 among Canadian comprehensive universities for preparing career-ready students, supporting our students for the goals and the opportunities that are in front of them. And as a research university, education and research are entwined with each other. We have world-class researchers and artists working to solve, as I said, some of the most complex problems of our time, and our students and our community partners are a key part of those solutions. It is our goal, and it's something I absolutely believe in, is the opportunity for our students to have hands-on opportunities, to learn from experts in the field who are committed to making the world a better place. And in addition to learning in the classroom, the lab, and the studio, we continue to enhance our cooperative education program, which you may not know, but it's like the 2nd largest co-op program in the country. And Canada is a leader in co-op. We rock the world. Australia, they have no clue, let me tell you. But Canada, we really do this right for our students. So we provide co-op opportunities around the world, as well as international exchange opportunities, things that absolutely lift the opportunities for our students, raise their sights, and help them to see the opportunities that are beyond them. We have more than 65% of our students participating in co-op. We have made hundreds of thousands of placements. It's amazing. And we want to empower our students to experience new things, and through work in integrated learning and studying abroad. Did you know that we have over 300 partnerships with post-secondary institutions worldwide where students can go and study a term abroad? This is quite amazing, and something that we think is important, and we appreciate your support in making this happen for our students. We are also recognizing that SDG number 4 is education, and it's education for the world. So we are working as part of our strategic plan on bringing our education through transnational education, which is instead of bringing students here, which is something that we do, bringing our education to the students, thinking about how we can deliver Canadian education in things like engineering and nursing, in business, in science, and other areas to students, and helping them learn from around the world. And I know that this is a real huge opportunity for us to make an impact in the world. Also, around that strategic goal, UVic has established the first accredited international training center for authorities and leaders in North America's West Coast, joining a network of 31 training centers. This is a UN center called CFAL, and it is providing training internationally, which helps leaders get certification to deliver their work. So this is pretty fantastic in the international front as well. So, our strategic plan, let's get to it. We have a beautiful new strategic plan. It's called Distinctly UVic, and it was just launched last month, and it builds on our distinct strengths and challenges us to be bolder, more confident, and more curious. Now, I'll tell you that this is not your basic regular strategic plan. If you want one of those, you can use ChatGPT. I can show you how later. This is a plan that defines our ambition to be more than just numbers. This is a plan to be brave, to be caring, to be passionate and thoughtful. It is about a culture of change and transformation that does ask us to ask searching questions, to listen deeply, to hold, as I said, a number of ideas in our head at the same time, to be prepared to disagree, to come together and then move forward. It requires compassion for each other as we struggle with change and willingness to learn new things. It asks us to look outward and forward, respecting where we have come from and recognizing our current challenges. One of the major priorities that has been recognized in the strategic plan and articulated is our Indigenous perspectives and our commitment to Indigenous perspectives. We want to be a community that is open to learning and deconstructing systemic barriers to Indigenous peoples. And the plan articulates our pledge to hold ourselves accountable to our commitment to Atol Nuel, as I said, respecting the rights of one another and being in right relationship with all things. And though this absolutely includes our commitment to the Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act and supporting the rights and sovereignties of Indigenous people. And we know that UVic is already positioned as a leader in Indigenous language revitalization, and our joint Indigenous law program is world-renowned. And you may have seen more Indigenous design elements in the art on our campus today than you have ever seen before. We also have 2 new student dining and housing facilities that were gifted Indigenous names. We have Chekning and which is named after the territory that is now Oak Bay and the peoples who lived there, and Snuka, which is named after a village in what is now known as Cadra Bay. These are tangible physical pieces, and we also have tangible systemic pieces. One of the things that we have introduced just now is that we have committed to having Associate Deans Indigenous in our faculties. So these are people that will help us work through the good and difficult work of changing our systems, of thinking about truth, reconciliation, and decolonization in our curriculum. What does that mean? What does that look like? And so we're committed to doing this. And as far as I know, we are the first university anywhere that has made this commitment. So this is something that's gone through our Senate and our board and is policy now, and we are in the process of appointing these people. So this is really transformative change. So this is a challenge for us. We need to work harder and better to address systemic barriers, and we will continue to explore opportunities for a distinction-based approach to healthcare and potentially through a new health-related faculty. So it is an interesting time for universities as we emerge from the global pandemic. Some of us are a bit blurry-eyed and maybe slightly out of sorts, and others of us are energized by the change and eager to see the opportunities to improve policies, structures, and access to healthcare. And so as a university, we are coming together to work together and bring each other along on what we need to do to serve our province around healthcare. We are developing a plan that articulates our support for wellness and the ability to thrive in a constantly changing, challenging world. We already have researchers making incredible breakthroughs in cancer treatment, diagnosis and treatment of disease, in the design of new drugs and therapies. And as I learned from one of our PhD students who's sitting right there, even therapies that can help people recover better from after using anesthesia. So it's just exciting to learn every day what our PhD students and our research students are doing. Our Institute of Aging and Lifelong Health works to improve the health and quality of life of individuals across the lifespan. And we have experts working to address substance use and support of individuals with addictions. And I know that anybody who's visited any downtown core recently will be aware what a pressing, urgent, and important issue this is, and how it's affecting people across all socioeconomic backgrounds and their loved ones. So our vision for health is one that is inclusive, is team-based, is connected, and is lifelong. It is community-focused. It is for all the people, all the place, and all the planet. At UVic, we will continue to provide this, and we are working forward to really be a partner with our province and our people to make a difference. We will also continue our commitment around sustainability. We want a world that will survive what we've brought upon it. And our work in sustainability contributes to many areas, including climate policy, smart sustainable cities, water security, ocean and climate science, and ecosystem conservation. By way of example, this year we launched a new interdisciplinary climate science program. Our students study at the incredible Bamfield Marine Sciences Center, and we're launching a new experimental ocean climate change lab. And of course, as you know, we are home to Ocean Networks Canada. And here's a fun fact. Did you know that 8% of the world's CO2 comes from cement? It's absolutely true. Our civil engineering faculty and graduate students are researching alternative and more sustainable binding materials to concrete. Civil engineering is an impressive department that is gaining momentum and interest from students and around the world. And I say that not just because I'm an engineer or not just because my daughter is currently studying civil engineering, but it is so important because our built environment is a key contributor to the climate problem, and it is also a key contributor to the climate solutions, and that's why it is so important. On the teaching front, there are exciting innovations in teaching with respect to generative AI and tools like ChatGPT that we're all talking about all the time. And I think there's many more opportunities for us to change the way that we're teaching and supporting students to learn well beyond the classroom. Sorry. One of the things we're really thinking about in terms of education is what does universal design look like? And what is universal design? Well, universal design is designed to be universal. It is designed to provide access for all folks so that everybody can reach the educational potential without barriers. And so the work that we are doing there, and I thank our deans and our educators to really embrace what it looks like to open up education for people by allowing them to use the tools that can help them be successful. By taking away the ridiculous stress of time. Why do we have, this is something that always drove me crazy. Why are midterms 1 hour? If you took an hour and a half to write a midterm, would that make you any dumber or any smarter? No, it just means I have never understood the purpose of speed differentiation or speed integration as nobody's ever asked me that. Can you do this calculus problem in 30 seconds? Does it matter? No. So I'm working with our academics to think about how we take that time stress away from our students and help them really learn. Because actually, as an academic, marking a paper where people have actually had time to answer the question properly is much more enjoyable than marking a paper where people have scribbled down whatever. So we are taking action, and I see this every day in the work that we are doing in all areas of the university. Through all of the things that they're doing. And I do want to just shout out for one of the really exciting things that isn't in my notes here, but I do want to talk about our work on this wonderful new project called ASSET, or Accelerating Community Energy Transitions, and just how wonderful it is that we have received as a university $80 million to work with Indigenous and coastal communities to get them off diesel and get them onto renewable electrical power. And this is a model for the world. This is a way of rethinking energy at source. And this is not just an engineering project. This is a whole of university project. This is a social science project. This is a business project. This is an Indigenous community project. And there's a bit of tech too. And I think this is one of the wonderful things about UVic is the way that we can bring people together and work on these important projects. So it really is all about partnership. Partnership is so important in all of our disciplines, and partnership with you and our donors and our community members is also hugely important, and we do want to be seen as open, responsive, supportive, as a preferred partner and a preferred community member. So I absolutely want to say thank you. Thank you, thank you. It wouldn't be possible to do all of these things and to lead on our strategic plan without the generosity of our donors, we could not do Atoll Noel. We could not do creating a change and transformation. We could not do progressive partnering without your help. So thank you for all of your support. Your support creates a positive student experience. Your support is wonderful for our students. It helps them to learn, to grow, to develop their passion, and it ultimately contributes to a better world, because that truly is the transformative power of education. So I would like to leave by saying thanks to a recent legacy gift. UVic was able to create new graduate student awards, as well as 5 postdoctoral research programs. These 5 new postdocs are doing amazing work related to climate change, seismology, astronomy, sustainability, and renewable energy, all aligned with what we want to do as a university. So I want to say thank you for making those gifts. Thank you for supporting our students and our research. Thank you, our donors, for believing in the transformative power of a university like UVic. I know that I made the right choice in coming back from Australia to be here at UVic, and I thank you for choosing UVic too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, and also thank you again to Dorothea, to Juliana, and of course to Doug and Kathy. This obviously is an incredibly special time to be part of the University of Victoria community, and I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your support, for your presence here today, and your continued interest in the university, and your continued interest in supporting future generations of UVic students. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you again, and we'll see you next year.